This is Pastor Rich with your daily lunch bites. I'm the lead pastor here at Lake. We're so glad that you're here and that you joined us. Today I just want to take a few minutes to dig into the Greatest Commandment. And we'll look at the second part of it and really kind of discuss that. So I want to read that to you. It's in Matthew chapter 22, verses 34 through 40. It says, "Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question, 'Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?' Jesus replied, 'Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments.'" See, the first half of the commandment is to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, and mind. That's our very being. That's everything we are is about loving God. And we see that kind of brought out in Romans chapter 12, the first verse. It says that we need to offer our bodies as living sacrifices, holy and blameless. And that's what we're to do. We're to offer our bodies as living sacrifices. Give them to the Lord because we love God and we love Him with all we are. And therefore, we give our entire life to God. The second half is love your neighbor as yourself. And that's where I want to spend a few minutes today. A book that I've read, and I had to read it in seminary actually, is The Unexpected Journey by Tom Rainier. In here are just some accounts of people coming from other faiths and becoming Christians, followers of Christ, and what their journey looked like to come to Christ. So the family that I'm going to talk about that's in here is that they were a Mormon family. Both the husband and the wife grew up in the Mormon church. Their parents were high up in the Mormon church. And they just were expected to be Mormons. And so they started to ask questions. They started to see inconsistencies within the Mormon faith. They started asking questions and good questions. And of course, when you're in a faith where it tends to be a little bit more controlling, they don't like you asking questions. And they were told to stop, don't ask any more questions and whatnot. But they continued, they persisted because they wanted to know who Jesus was. They wanted to understand who He really was in the grand scheme of things because they didn't feel like they were being told the entire truth. And as they began to really research this and look into this, some things started to change in their hearts. They started to understand who Jesus was and started to understand what He meant to people in their lives. And so they visited a church and had got connected with that church, left the Mormon church. And of course, the Mormon church will disown you when you leave the Mormon church, and their family disowned them. So they were kind of left on their own. And as the story continues, they had a daughter who got sick. She was terminally ill. And they were impressed by the love of the people of the church. That they would come and they would bring food and they would just check on them and encourage them. And the day came when the daughter passed away. Well, when the daughter passed away, they had a funeral. And at the funeral, they were amazed that nobody from their family came to the funeral. Grandparents and aunts and uncles and people that would normally be at funerals of a little girl, of a daughter, weren't there. But they were overwhelmed with who was there because the church showed up. The church came and they loved on them and they showed them the love of Christ. And that's the way we need to live our lives. We need to have that love of Christ in our lives. See, when we love our neighbors, it's not about their choices and their actions. It's about who they are in Christ. And in Christ, we're all created by Him and for Him. And He wants to have a relationship with each one of us. And as we walk through life, we meet people all the time who are following Christ, and we meet people who are not following Christ. And we look at them and sometimes we try to separate them out, and we've got to stop separating them out and understand that everybody needs Christ. And we love people by walking in life with them. So the challenge for you today as we just wrap this up real quick is that you need to walk in the love of Christ by showing each person around you His love. And sometimes that can be challenging. Sometimes it means loving people that we really don't like. And that's okay. We all have those people in our lives, right? We all have the people in our lives that we really don't like, but we got to love them. And that's what God calls us to do. We have to love them. When we see them in need, we have to reach out and try to fulfill their need as best we can. So as you go forward this week, that's my challenge to you. Reach out. Love your neighbor as yourself. Have a great day.